Thank you. For more on this now, we turn to criminal defense attorney Mark Eiglarsh and New York trial attorney and Fox News legal analyst Arthur Aidala. Good to see you both. So let's just start with the sheriff. We can see on the video that after the cop lays hands on this young woman, she punches him in the neck, the head. You can see that on the video. The sheriff, here it is, watch. Right there. So the sheriff seems to be suggesting that there may have been that she may have made contact with him even prior to that. It's unclear. I want to say that it's unclear. The sheriff didn't produce that video. We haven't seen that video, so it's ambiguous. But your take on this, Arthur?
I think that any reasonable person viewing this would say that excessive force is being used, and a battery, a federal civil battery at the very least, is being perpetrated on this high school female student who's refusing to put away her telephone. I don't think there is an educator on the planet Earth who would say that that was the appropriate way to handle that situation of a student under a blackboard in a classroom, not only harming that student, Megan, but you could see in I think the first video that you and Trey showed, there's a young girl who's watching this, and you can see her shutting her eyes. This is a travesty for everyone surrounding that episode.
But just to set the record straight, Mark, it wasn't. This didn't happen because of the cell phone. That was the initial reason she got in trouble. Then they said she caused a disturbance. The teacher said, you need to leave. She refused. They called in the assistant principal. The assistant principal said, you need to leave. She refused. And then they called in the school resource officer. So that is to the point to which it had escalated when he arrived.
Right. And let me make clear, I don't agree with everything Arthur says. While we both agree as reasonable people that he probably used excessive force by throwing her like a sack of potatoes, let's back up a bit. She did cause a disturbance in the classroom. By the way, none of this justifies what the officer does. Each thing needs to be looked at separately. But she did cause a disturbance, which is a misdemeanor in South Carolina. She also refused to leave the classroom, ignoring the teacher, the administrator, and now the law enforcement officer. And what we can see is she committed a felony by battering the officer.
You can see her hit him twice.
Also,
Mark.
Yeah, and another thing, Arthur, I'm not done.
Mark.
Hold on.
Wait,
we have to keep this fair and balanced, Arthur. Her feet then, if you watch the video, do get stuck. I don't know if it's 1 foot or 2, but that causes him to have to use extra force.
Mark.
Throwing her across the room, Arthur, before you say it, is reserved for WWE wrestling. I get it.
Mark.
But before that, you have to put everything in context.
Go ahead, Arthur.
Go ahead, my bald, beautiful brother. Yeah.
All three of us are parents. If any one of us saw our child, even though the child was a 100% wrong, being treated like this, I don't want to make this too personal, but my friend Doug would go and choke somebody. My friend Mark would go and Megan would choke.
That is a good perspective setter, because when you picture your own loved one there, it's much tougher to be,
the people
objective on it.
Megan, the people here that you and I work with in this building, because this story's been on all day, who I've spoken to, knowing that we were going to talk about this tonight, everyone, I mean, it's disturbing to watch.
Arthur, how about this? Let's say that is your loved one who's the law enforcement officer. Hold on. You're not going to justify what he did after he pulled her out of their chair. But people are saying that he had no right to touch her. There was no basis to apprehend her. And your argument would be, well, wait a second. No, hold on. She needed to be pulled out of the chair because she wasn't listening. She did batter the officer. That's all I'm making the point here. We have to keep that in the context.
Well, now some in the community are suggesting he's racist, and that he's gone after other African-American students. And yet the sheriff came out today and said, I'm just looking at it, he says, this cop has never exhibited any racist attitudes and actually has been in a long-standing relationship with an African-American woman. And so the charge of race, trying to inject race into this, they say will not hold.
But there are, and I'm not injecting race into this, but there are 2 previous court cases.
You did, Arthur.
He won the first one, and the other one is unresolved. It's pending.
One went to a federal trial, and one is unresolved.
But he was exonerated in the first one, Arthur. You can't hold that one against him.
I'm not holding it against him, but it's not like he's a police officer who has never been touched with the race card in his whole career.
Oh, come on.
This is someone who's been touched twice.
That cannot be the standard. People make allegations all the time. The question is, can you prove it? Go ahead, Mark.
In his opening monologue, Mr. Aidala said any reasonable person would believe, that this should be a civil rights investigation. We know the color of her skin and the color of his skin. Is that all it takes now? with nothing additional.
Okay.
Is that all it takes, Arthur?
Megan, this is all I'm going to ask. Let's have an even playing field. If this administration, if the Obama administration is going to have a civil rights investigation into Ferguson, Missouri, when a police officer had every right to stop Michael Brown because he had a description matching a robbery, then here they definitely have to have an investigation when you have a police officer a law enforcement officer going after a high school student. If it's good in Missouri, then it's got to be good here.
And he's been suspended without pay. I want to say that he's been suspended without pay, and even the sheriff has said, you know, what's on the tape is worthy of investigation. That's why he brought the feds in, because he didn't want
good for him.
Any
good
allegation
of
conflict of interest, because this is his guy. We'll continue to follow it. Great to see you both.
Thank you, Megan. I like your haircut. You look like me.
Thank you. Whoa. Whoa, what did he just say?